Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight interview series. I'm your host, Barrett McDonald. I'm joined today by John Leahy, founder of immediaC. John, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to kick things off with a little bit about who you are and what it is immediaC does?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me. It's fun to do this kind of thing and share the story. immediaC is now hard to believe 26 years old. Um, we are really a software company, but a big part of what we do is web. So we built a content management system in the late 90s before there really was a content management category even. Um, and since then, we build a lot of mobile apps, a lot of member management, a lot of registration, online voting. Most of the websites that we build have some database component, whether that's helping companies like Big Spruce sell beer or Extreme Pizza sell pizza or the Nova Scotia Teachers Union run a vote.
Okay.
We're really truly an online enabler. And we like to think about the work we do as bringing competitive advantage to our clients.
Absolutely. And historically, you're doing quite well at it to be around doing that for 27 years and to be a trendsetter in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it only gets more exciting with what's happening now with AI and the speed with which we can, communicate. I think the most exciting thing that's happened in the last 2 weeks is we started to use AI to build mock-ups. We're typically when we're dealing with a piece of software, we would build static images with a Photoshop or Adobe XD or Figma. There's lots of tools, but most of them have very limited clickability. We can now go to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me a calendar and here's 50 appointments to put on that calendar, and it'll write all the HTML and JS, and what would take a week to do is done in 5 minutes. There's just so much happening right now
Yeah,
that it's fun to be on the leading edge and
absolutely.
figure out how can we create competitive advantage.
Absolutely. So, John, what would you say have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you began in business?
Hmm. Um, you and I were just talking about kids before we got the recording going, and I think the philosophy that you bring when you have little kids and even teenagers is you want to create a safe place to fail, uh, and it's really easy to say that, fail fast, fail often. I remember maybe I heard this story in a business class back in UNB in the 80s. But there was a story about this IBM guy who made a mistake and it cost the company $1 million, and he goes into his boss's office with the resignation letter, and his boss looks at him and says, "What, are you out of your mind? I just paid $1 million for your education on that mistake. Go back to work. Throw that letter away." Um, so again, it's really easy to say. It's hard to keep your cool when people maybe have made mistakes that has had an impact on customers. Um, when things get hard, it's easy when the business is growing, and then when you hit a downturn, that's when you got to make sure it's a safe place for everybody to learn, to grow, to create. No one's and everybody says this. I mean, I heard John Risley say this recently. I never learned anything when we were growing. I only learned things when it was hard. Um, so I really think that's the most important thing is to create a place where it is safe to make mistakes, because you can't learn, you can't grow unless you're making mistakes.
No,
Fail.
absolutely. Fail fast, fail often, just dust yourself up and keep on going.
Right. And, I always remind myself, because my father-in-law spent 35 years as an air traffic controller. So, my wife brings a very different philosophy to the party. You can't fail fast, fail often when you're landing airplanes. Failing means 300 people at a fireball on the runway. So, you know, if you're going to run a fail fast, fail often environment, you got to protect your customers and make sure that you have good, robust testing before you put things into live production when it comes to software. Doesn't
Absolutely.
apply to every business, obviously.
No, you don't want to be deep sea diving and fail fast, fail often.
No,
That's not you won't fail often. You'll just fail fast in that scenario. Just
correct.
once.
Exactly.
Which is awesome. So when you're thinking about expanding your team and when you're looking at hiring those good employees, what are the qualities you look for and how do you foster that positive work environment?
Yeah, about it might be 13 years ago now, 12 or 13 years ago, we considered doing co-op and Dow students, I mean, we're too small. We were probably 4 or 5 people. That doesn't make any sense. And then we got convinced to go look at it. I think, the Dow co-op office probably worked on us a little bit, and we went and interviewed a bunch of students. And we're like, what do you need? What do you want to do? And they're like, well, I want to code. Don't put me on a testing desk. And we started to grow at that time a little bit. And, we ended up paying headhunter fees a couple of times. And, we have a relationship with a couple of companies that's been phenomenal. But our real recruiting strategy has been consistently every term to have a co-op student. And, I bet you half the company today started at immediaC as a co-op. And,
Nice.
of the management team of 4, 2 of those people started as co-ops. So working with Dow and NSCC, we've just done a tremendous amount of work with co-ops. We've just felt so grateful. We created scholarships at both Dow and at NSCC to just create more opportunity, because it really allowed us to meet the right people, get to know them, and frankly pick the best of the bunch in many cases, and bring them onto the team.
Yeah, I mean, your ability to give back there is commendable. So we all thank you for that because it's selfless because you don't know if they're ever going to come work for you. So there's nothing wrong with that in that scenario.
Yeah. And on the other hand, it was very selfish. We wouldn't have been able to grow the way that we did. I mean, through COVID, we picked up a whole bunch of contracts out of the US. And, we doubled the size of the company over the course of 14 months. And, I had people that were outside the company going, wow, you got, and, we had, a fun place to work, and they wanted to be part of that.
That's awesome. So what would you say are some of the common misconceptions about owning a business that everyone encounters and how did you combat those in the early stages or continuously now?
Wow, that's a good question. A few years here and there, people would always say, wow, you're so young to be in business for yourself. Nobody says that anymore. And it was really unusual in, the mid 90s and the early 90s to be in business for yourself. I mean, I started a computer training company in 1991. Actually, I started a database company in 1991, and we did a couple of database contracts. But in the end, people are like, yeah, John, the database thing, that's great. Can you help us figure out this WordPerfect and Lotus 1, 2, 3 and DOS? Like, how do we're just lost. And it's like, well, sure, I could show you that. Before I knew it, after about 3 years, we were running 5 classrooms in the Maritime Center doing training for everybody from the phone company to small and medium-sized businesses. I just always knew and was attracted to business, and technology was the coolest business to be in. Misconceptions. I think the thing that bothers me the most, and I've run into this recently, being in more of a B2C environment with a roofing company, that sometimes people think because you're in business that it's really, and you don't run into this in business to business sales, but in business to consumer sales, sometimes people just think, well, you're the big bad company, and you know we're gonna beat you up on your price. Well, the price is the price. We already agreed to the price. Yeah, but and I was just astonished at that. So I think sometimes people think that people in business aren't nice,
Right.
for lack of a
Yeah.
better word. And even when you are nice, they feel like, well, we gotta get another $1,000 off this deal. It's in sort of a traditional, used car salesmen are perceived as the worst. Always wheeling and dealing and trying to find another $500. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
we don't add 10% to our prices just so we can negotiate.
right. Can you do it for less, John? Well, yeah, but we're just, I mean, at the end of the day, whether we're doing roofing or in the software business, they're professional services. We're just providing a set of skills at an hourly rate um, to accomplish applying a roof or building a website.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's amazing. So what do you attribute your growth to over the last 27 years?
Um, well, you know what? We haven't always grown over those 27 years. In fact, the last 5 years were really the time when we grew, and that wasn't always even. We'd have a lot of growth, and then we'd slow down a little bit, and then we'd speed up again. Um, for me personally, the biggest change was that I really had to grow up, be a
Okay.
better manager, leader, and let other people take things on. I alluded to the fact that you really truly have to walk the talk of being a safe place. So that means never, never, ever getting upset.
Right.
That when you get upset, it just scares people. And there's a guy on my team who really pointed that out to me many years ago. He said, John, you're the captain. When you get upset, everybody panics. Well, of course, that's obvious. Thanks. Good advice. What was I thinking?
Yeah, sure. You just cost me $1 million, but yeah, I'll stay calm.
But and fortunately, that kind of thing has never happened to me. Well, no, that's not true. There was one. No, but the point is, really, leadership is making sure that you can confidently plot a chart, a course for the company. Yeah, on the chart. You can plot a course for the company and get people's input and change that and allow everybody to be part of that success.
Absolutely.
And it's far better.
So thinking back over 27 years ago now, if you were to start all over again from square one, what would you do differently?
I have a pretty fundamental philosophy on that, and that is I wouldn't do anything differently given what I knew at that time. All the things that I did were based on what I knew at the time. If I was starting again today, and in fact, I did start a brand new business 2 years ago. Um, I went out and leveraged people who already knew how to do that work. I mean, we did hire and train some new people, but if you want to do anything, go figure out who is already doing it and get involved with them. Get the
Right.
experts. And you asked me, what are the misconceptions? I talked to some people who were potential hires in the roofing business who had all the tools and all the pieces and could have easily started their own roofing business, but they didn't want the perceived hassle. Whether that was taxes or payroll or dealing with too many clients or whatever. I mean, the reason I started the roofing business is I saw unlimited potential to grow it,
Right.
and quick sales cycles and, great demand. So that was one of the purest business opportunities that I had seen. Um, so yeah, the thing that I do differently now because of the experience is go find people who are experts in project management, in quoting, we built a lot of software for that business. But in the application of metal roofing, even though I'd had lots of experience and had figured it out, I didn't want to be on the roof every day.
Right. Absolutely. So
And
you didn't trust others to build the business around you.
right. And frankly, that's a straight steal from John Risley. He tells a great story, and he told this many years ago. I think I was at a junior achievement dinner, and he said, look, we worked really hard at Clearwater. I was so tired that I'd have to call my wife to come and get me at the end of the day. I was too tired to drive home. And in the end, we made lots of money at Clearwater. And then we started Ocean Nutrition. And we got a bunch of people together who already knew how to do the work that Ocean Nutrition did with what was effectively lobster shells, I think, and other seafood waste that they turned into protein powder. I think that's what that business was about. And we made 10 times as much money at Ocean Nutrition. And then he did it again. He went around and he got a whole bunch of people who really understood the cable business, and he bought a bunch of cable stations in the Caribbean. I'm oversimplifying his story. But the theme was go get the people who really understand that business, get into business with them. And he said, we made 10 times as much money in the Caribbean in the cable business as we did at Ocean Nutrition.
Right.
And now he's, building windmills to make hydrogen for the or to save the planet. And,
Just Superman level stuff.
yeah. So the point is it's always about the people.
Absolutely. Surrounding yourself with good people is always a key.
Yeah.
So how do you go about balancing your personal life with the demands of running multiple businesses now?
I typically this time of the year, because the roofing business was dormant in the wintertime, we just started up again. So this time of year, especially when it's light out early in the morning, I'm up at 5. I'll spend that first hour really just thinking and planning and prioritizing, sometimes reading. I love to listen to Dan Martell for a few minutes every morning. I don't know if you follow him. He's a guy out of Moncton who's had 3 or 4 exits, and he has a business called the SaaS Academy now, and he's just really open about how he created his success, and he has some great philosophies that he shares. Then by 7 o'clock, I'll visit a job site where there's roofing going on. By 9:30, I'm in the office with the immediaC team. We'll do a stand up. I'll do a bunch of meetings there and just catch up with what's going on. And hopefully on a good day, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm here. Sometimes I get to do a boat job. I'm working on this boat that I've been restoring for the last few years, but this is a great place to work this time of the year. Do calls and connect with clients or finish some quotes.
Absolutely. Sounds like you've found that balance for sure. That works for you.
And my kids are, we were talking about this earlier. There was a time when, you got to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was headed for an ice rink for ringette or hockey, or to a paddling course somewhere for sprint canoe. We've followed the kids around for years and did that. Now my kids are 24 and 27. They're out there in the world. So, my wife and I have a lot more time to work on sailboats and do stuff like that.
Reconnect and do all of those things. So my last kind of question for you is, for someone who's watching this series at home, what's one solid piece of advice for someone thinking about starting their own business?
Don't think about it. If you think it's like thinking about having kids, especially for guys. Like, no, you just got to jump in the pool. So what do you need to do to get comfortable with that then, if you're just going to start it? I've worked with a lot of startups over the years. People have been coming to me since the late 90s. Hey, John, I got this great idea for the internet. I got this great idea to build an app. I'm like, just stop. Ideas are like elbows. Everybody's got 2. Only thing that matters in business is, do you have a customer? Do you know how to keep a customer? Do you know how to get the next customer? And did they write you a check? Like, don't spend any money building your great idea for an app unless you got somebody who's already signed the check and they're going to pay for it up front. Because everybody says, that's a great idea, John. You should go build that 3D try-on swimsuits on your webcam in 2011. No, nobody wrote the check. Right. And look, I say that I've had lots of ideas. I've worked with lots of partners who've had ideas, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But the only way to figure it out is to try it. And most of the time you can do that by spending little or no money and go get that first customer.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic piece of advice. So John, I thank you so much for your time today. And for those of you watching at home, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.
Thanks, Barrett. This was fun.
Thanks.